Photographer Shelley Polson is a photographer out of Kansas City. One day, Shelley went to an event called IHOP, which is International House of Prayer, which is an event that tours the country investing in the lives of the youth about Christ. Shelley one day was taking a picture of a girl at this event, and afterwards came up to her and let her know that she took her picture. This picture was of the lady in the light praying intensely. After Shelley had given her card away to this woman, she received an email about a week later after the pictures had been posted, and the email read like this. Dear Shelley, I just wanted to say thank you. The Lord used you in your mighty way the other night. During the exact time you were taking my picture, I was praying, Father, please see me. See me, Lord, see me right now. Show me that you care. So in you coming to me, he was speaking to me, saying that I do see you. I see you and I do care, and I love you. So thank you, and thank you for your photography ministry. So, photography is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. It is not just taking a picture or capturing a moment. It can be used for the Lord's work, since it is a spiritual gift, which is creativity. We can be using that not only as an occupation, but as a ministry. Photography is a great job field that's actually currently budding. I know more people who are getting into photography than the regular typical retail job at people our age, or my age. People are leaving their jobs, and they're traveling around the world, and they're taking pictures of things that are sometimes unreachable to other people. We have friends who are going to India. They're with Woodnote Photography, and they are realizing that there is more and more need for people to see India, and so they're using their ministry for photography. I've been a photographer since I was 3, of course, as an amateur. I've taken some classes at Carroll College, but I've always liked it, and I've used it for ministry in classes and for churches and things like that. So photography, to me, is not just an art form, but it's also a way that I can use Christ in ministry. Photography is a budding career that most people kind of put to the wayside. People think that creativity is not necessarily going to pay the rent, but it is these days. People are actually appreciating creativity. And in a study from an Alban text, which is speech and communications, he's saying that the creativity world of photography and media is actually growing at the same rate that other career fields are moving, which is pretty cool. So let's look at also the option of what a salary could possibly be for a photographer. Typically, artists are pretty low budget, but the photography world is growing, like I was saying. And so now, typically, the average American photographer is making about $44,000 to $63,000 a year, which is pretty impressive considering back in the day, creativity was not much of a career at all. Photography for the Christian faith is a whole other field, because we also now have creativity and ministry, 2 fields that we don't typically see as a money-making business. But this can be all chained by one Josh Merrill. He is a Christian nature photographer, and he has devoted his entire life to taking pictures of God's creation and showing them to people who couldn't necessarily see them. He is quoted saying that God has created the nature's world in such a way that it inspires a person to see his creativity and praise him for it. He uses his photography to show people the majesty of Christ and how evident he is in everything that we do. Susie Van Dyke is another local photographer. She's out of LA. On her website, she's listed that, and she's found that in local churches, there's a higher need for a photographer than some youth ministers. They need someone to take pictures of the leaders of the church, of the missionaries, to record the events that they have, like a concert or any kind of event, especially like IHOP, as we were talking about before, with Shelley Polson. The need for people who are creative is growing because media is growing, and the church is trying to continually evolve in that way. So ministry and photography are slowly becoming a huge need for the church. As we also see, being a photographer comes on many different levels. You have the general Instagrammer who takes a picture every day of what they eat for lunch. And then you also have the photographer who takes pictures as a living, quits their job, and literally travels around the world. Well, like Susie Van Dyke, there's also Jade and Caroline, who I was talking about before. They're with Woodnote Photography. they just got back from a trip from India. They typically take pictures of brides and magazines and different organizations, but this trip was to promote India and the children, and to raise awareness about what God is doing there in India. Being a photographer also comes with the need for education. Not everyone knows how to use Photoshop or an editing program. So how do you do this? How do you become a photographer for Christ that also kind of knows what they're doing? Well, there's a couple different institutes. A lot of colleges offer photography classes, but do they offer Christian photography classes? Well, there are actually two, believe it or not, that I was able to find. One is called the Institute of Photogenic Studies, or IPS. It's a Christian-owned photography school directed and taught around the world. It's an online photography school for Christians who want to learn about Christ, teach about Christ, and use their creativity through photography to do that. They offer online classes throughout the year, and also work with another company called Christian Photo. It's a business that then helps photographers after they graduate this school to become more involved in Christian venues, taking photos for that, and also using that through ministry to show people who may not know Christ what the talent is that He's given them, their abilities. So Christian Photo also likes to show the photography and love for God in the way that they run their business. It's a charitable foundation, so it also employs people who may not otherwise have a job. So, in conclusion, use of photography is a widely growing career, especially photography in ministry, one that can be grown to show the love of Christ, but also show the love of creativity and photography. So, it's incredibly easy to be educated. There are classes out there. There are people willing to teach you, and there is definitely a church in need of your help. So please consider using your creativity in the church.
Okay.